Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. My name's Tim May. This is the Tim May Podcast, pretty aptly named. Yet another edition. This thing is kind of flying high. I don't know if it's because of my charm, wit, and good looks, or if it's because Ohio State football is taking off like a jet plane. If you watched the game on Saturday night, Ohio State at Nebraska, it was supposed to be the first true test for the 2019 Buckeyes. I would say they passed it with flying colors and then some, and with Jeffrey Okudah and Chase Young doing their thing on defense, and Justin Fields, J.K. Dobbins doing their things on offense, the offensive line taking care of business, which I'm going to talk about later in the show. Going to analyze a play for you, my favorite play again from that game, an almost perfectly blocked play again by the Ohio State offensive line, and the defense holding sway. And in special teams, Drew Chrisman, I think, got one punt. Am I right about that, Austin? And too bad it hit the 5, but rolled into the end zone. It would have been a perfect night for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But I digress. Bottom line, Ohio State plays Michigan State this week, another, quote, ranked, end quote, opponent. And to talk about the Spartans, I've got a guy who has been covering the Spartans since, I think it was Michigan Agriculture and Mechanical School. Did I have that right, Jack?
1922. No, it wasn't 1920. Yeah. When you talk about the first real test for Ohio State Saturday, the test was whether they would fall asleep in the second half.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, if you live in the Lansing area, you recognize those dulcet tones of Jack Ebling, longtime sports writer turned radio personality host, award-winning sports writer, award-winning radio talk show host. Worked with the Lansing State Journal for how many years, Jack?
25, and then I escaped.
And then he escaped and became a voice of mid Michigan. Hey, Jack, welcome to my show, man. Thanks for coming on.
And I'm really glad that you named it the Tim May Podcast. If you'd named it the Bill Bender Podcast,
yeah,
I'd have been very concerned.
There would have been confused people out there. I want to make it, but the I Digress Podcast, but nobody here seems to jump on that. I think it's a great idea, a name for a show. Real quick, give us an update on Michigan State, where they stand. This is a perplexing team when you watch them.
Yeah.
They lose to Arizona State because they couldn't kick 2 straight field goals. First they couldn't count to 11, and then they couldn't kick another field goal after that. Other than that, Michigan State would be rolling in undefeated. I don't know if rolling is the right word. Kind of bumpity in undefeated.
It'd be creeping in undefeated, maybe.
Bingo, getting pushed in, But bottom line is, how good is this team, Jack, at this moment, 4 or 5 games into the season?
Well, I would say that this is as good a defense as there is in the league, except Indiana and Michael Penix Jr. completed 20 straight passes on Saturday. So I don't know if I can say that anymore, but suddenly the offense wakes up, and Brian Lewerke and Darryl Stewart, who's Big Ten's leading receiver, I'd say he's the best receiver, but he has the best stats. And Brian Lewerke has the most attempts, completions, and yards in the Big Ten, which is somewhat of a departure for a Mark D'Antonio team.
Well, that's called hallelujah that you're behind and the quarterback gets to throw the ball a little bit. You follow my drift? Number 2, this is what's been gnawing at me for a while now, Jack, when you analyze Michigan State. I mean, Big Ten meetings, you're sitting there and we're talking to Mark D'Antonio, and he goes, we can't be losing games 10-7, 13-10. You got to be able to score points. So he shook up his offensive staff. Didn't really bring anybody in new, though, did he? I mean, who did he bring anyone in new with new ideas?
No, what they did was shuffle responsibilities. We call it the D'Antonio shuffle.
There you go.
Some people said it was like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, but they did move some people around, and Brad Salem now is giving a little bit of life to the offense, which was beyond stagnant. Last year, in the last 4 losses, Michigan State scored 7, 6, 6, and 6.
Wow.
25 points in 4 L's.
Wow. What has he brought to the table? Just the propensity to pass the ball more? What's been the biggest change you've seen from observing?
Yeah, more passing, but I think when they pass is as big an issue as how many times, and a few different wrinkles, formations that were different. Michigan State liked to play football in the phone booth. not so much this year.
Right.
They'll still line up that way from time to time, but they're in the bunch formations and trips and those kinds of things that Michigan State didn't do a lot of. Brian Lewerke pretty comfortable now as a senior quarterback, and he's had a decent year. He's throwing for about 300 yards a game, and he's got a lot of guys out there, a lot of different targets who can catch the ball.
Yeah. I mean, there's, for most coaches, there's nothing more comforting than having your starting quarterback back. And then last year,
Yeah.
things just went south for Michigan State. This year, there has been, like you said, D'Antonio's wanted to commit more.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about comparing what went on between Indiana and Michigan State on Saturday with what went on between Ohio State and Indiana 3 weeks ago. Indiana didn't have Michael Penix Jr. and he definitely is a better quarterback, well-rounded quarterback than Peyton Ramsey. But what did Indiana expose, do you think, Michigan State on Michigan State's defense from what you could tell?
Well, they had what I call a lot of long handoffs, and they were passes out to the flat, and sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't, but they had a guy named Whop Filliard, who you probably remember.
By the way, he's by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I think we may have covered this before Ohio State played Indiana, but he got the nickname from liking Whoppers. Burger King Whoppers. Maybe we can get them as a sponsor on the show. But go ahead now. Whop Filliard, one of the great names ever.
Yeah, exactly. And he had a whopper of a day, actually. He was catching the ball about every 30 seconds, it seems. So, but Indiana was ahead in the fourth quarter. Michigan State had to rally to tie, and then came back and kicked the field goal. What should have been the last play of the game, but there were 5 seconds left, and then Indiana tried one of those 4 lateral plays, and next thing you know, the ball's back in the end zone. Ohio State had one of those, I think, against Northwestern.
Yeah, exactly.
A few years ago.
Exactly.
And suddenly the last play of the game, I think I remember in that Ohio State-Northwestern game, it actually influenced the spread.
Yeah, probably did.
Yeah. But this gave Michigan State a very deceptive 9-point win.
That sounds like somebody who might have lost money on that Ohio State-Northwestern game way back when, but I digress. You know how you remember all your bad shots in golf,
Yeah, I think I know somebody looking in the mirror here who might have won some money.
Oh, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Boom, boom. Well, bottom line, is this defense, I mean, what's your take on this Michigan State defense? Is it up to D'Antonio's snuff? I mean, where would you put it right now?
I think it is. They held Arizona State to 10.
Yeah.
They've been terrific. They're right there, top 5 run defense. They were right there last year, too. And Joe Bocci is a tremendous middle linebacker. They have 6 guys, Tim, off this defense who I think will be in the NFL next year. And Michigan State's never had more than 5 defensive players drafted in 1 year.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's interesting because, I've been telling folks this is going to be Ohio State's first, I think, true test of its offense going against a great defense. And do you see it the same way? I mean, this could be that could be the crux of this game. Go ahead.
It could be, and people around here are saying, well, remember 2013 and remember 15. They don't say remember 2017, and that was when a terrific Ohio State team was motivated and came out, and I think it was 100-0.
Yeah, it was, I think, at halftime. But you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Weber just scored again, by the way.
Yeah. So. Well, now let's get your take. I know you watched at least the first half before you went to sleep on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Because you're early to bed, early to rise kind of guy. But what was your take? What was your take on Ohio State and the beating they put on the frost warnings?
Yeah, I was a little surprised because I know how much this game meant to Nebraska, and it was game day, and they made such a big deal about this. And I'd heard Nebraska people saying, they were going to do what Iowa did and what Purdue did to Ohio State. And that didn't happen. And it was over early. But a lot of these Ohio State games are over early.
What impressed you right out of the gate about Ohio State is you just think about that game, not specific players, et cetera, but what just impressed you about Ohio State's approach?
Speed, aggressiveness, confidence, Justin Fields is a little better than I thought he would be, and I thought he'd be good.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think he'd have 6 touchdowns in a quarter. I just think that with Ryan Day, they haven't missed a beat. Maybe they've added another element.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people thought, okay, he looks like a pretty good young coach, but there's going to be an adjustment period. Instead, he's been Lincoln Riley 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that this Ohio State team, I am not an AP poll voter, but if I were, I'd be very tempted to make them number 1 in the country.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been convinced of that. I mean, Joel Klatt, came up with his top 4 or 5 revealed. Kirk Herbstreit was saying that after the game on Saturday night about Ohio State. Matter of fact, Kirk and some of those guys on ABC or ABC ESPN were saying that before the game. They thought Ohio State had been the most impressive team in the country so far among the elite. And it's really funny though how people still vote about yesterday and not today. With Clemson.
Right.
I mean, Clemson is not the same Clemson, at least not yet, that it was at the end of the year last year. That's for sure. And
you will know that Ohio State has arrived if Desmond Howard picks the Buckeyes to beat the Wolverines in the last game of the year.
Yeah. Well, that may be bad for the Buckeyes. You know how that goes, right? They're called reverse psychology. Hey, real quick.
Tell me who's impressed you. Who's the most impressive player? Is it Justin Fields or is it Chase Young?
No, it's both. I mean, that's the thing Ohio State's got going for it. There are 3 guys on this team right now, 4 really. When you think about J.K. Dobbins has been renewed at running back, but with a threat at running quarterback is just upped a J.K. Dobbins game. And then Master Teague the third, we're going to talk about him later in this show when I bring my Boston Ward on. I call him Boston. His real name's Austin, but he's my boss. You know what I'm saying? So I respect those above me, Mr. Ebling. But
Understand.
But I digress. Master Teague the third has just given them this second element in their running game from the running back standpoint, which, I mean, I think you saw that lightning drive they had just before halftime. He touched the ball all 3 times. But then defensively, I mean, Chase Young, but, Jeffrey Okudah has those 2 interceptions on Saturday. You got to remember, until 2 weeks ago, Jeffrey Okudah, who might be the elite cornerback in the country this year, had 0 interceptions at Ohio State. He should have had 2 weeks ago. And against who was that they played 2 weeks ago? Miami of Ohio. How soon they forget, right? But and then
Miami of Ohio would like to forget.
Yeah, exactly. And then boom, right out of the gate, he said, Jeff Hafley, the new defensive backs coach and co-coordinator on the defense, basically kept telling me, hey, you play the game, play your responsibility, and those plays will come. Well, holy smokes. He makes a great interception with Chase Young chasing, pardon the expression, Adrian Martinez to the edge, throws the ball, and Jeffrey Okudah breaks on it for an interception. And then his second interception on Saturday night, he's laying on his back, and the ball lands right in his hands.
Wow.
That's called inevitability. And that's what they've got going for them. But these are 2 guys that any college team would pick. So those are my 3 or 4 guys that are standouts right now. That's not even naming the entire defensive line, the entire offensive line, which the entire offensive line has been stellar. I mean, I think it showed up on Saturday night, didn't it, as you were watching?
Yes, I did. And, I think there's a legitimate chance, Tim, that Michigan State can hold Ohio State in the 30s, maybe 35, which sounds like a lot of points, but for Ohio State, that's less than a half's production sometimes. But here's the reason I don't think Michigan State is going to be in this in the fourth quarter. They have a 4th-string left tackle on offense playing. Now, when Chase Young looks at that video, he's going to be drooling all over himself. And they lost Cole Chewins, and then they lost A.J. Arcuri, and then they moved their best lineman, Kevin Jarvis, out from guard to left tackle, and then he got hurt. So now they have another guard playing out there, and I can just see number 2 zeroing in on Brian Lewerke's backside the whole game.
Can't Jim Bowman work some miracles this week? I mean, what's your thought on that?
Did you see Jim Bowman work miracles at Ohio State?
Well,
Uh,
he did all right at Ohio State, as long as he was
yeah,
working under Jim Tressel. I mean, Jim Bob
yeah.
Jim Bob was one of the great guys I've ever met. But
Oh, absolutely.
everybody gets challenged now and again. If you follow my
Yeah.
drift.
But if you've got your first three left tackles injured,
Yes, that's
it's going
not
to take
good.
more than Jim Bowman.
Yeah. Well, that's not good, especially with Ohio State having its fleet of defensive linemen ready to rock and roll,
Right.
And the thing
Right.
about it is they twist and stunt and do all kinds of things too, kind of like what Michigan State's been doing forever. And
Yeah.
that will be the dance that I'll be watching is Michigan State's, like you said, depleted offensive line against Ohio State's fleet of defensive linemen. Hey, one other quick thing before you go
Yeah.
is what's your take on and you may not even want to talk about it right now, but the lawsuit that's come up, with the former recruiting coordinator up there. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
D'Antonio's
Curtis Blackwell.
yeah,
Yeah.
D'Antonio's had a tough couple of off seasons, or if that's what you want to
Yeah.
call it. I mean, how much is that stuff distracting? You think from what they're trying to get done up there?
Well, I don't think it matters too much to the players. They seem immune to that kind of thing. That class in 2016, a lot of players have left from that one particular class when Blackwell was there.
Yeah.
And, it may be a distraction down the road, but I don't think right now it is. It may be if it comes to court proceedings, but D'Antonio hasn't been deposed yet. And Curtis Blackwell, some people love him, some couldn't stand him.
Mm-hmm.
But he was going to be released because he just wasn't a good fit. You know what D'Antonio is like.
Yes.
And, he's not for everyone, and not everyone can work for him. And he and Blackwell, I don't think they ever were really on the same page. So before any of the problems really hit, he was not going to renew his contract.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And, now that Blackwell can make allegations, and we'll see what happens. He's looking for money. And he's got, a case against former athletic director and the university in general. So
Yeah.
we'll see if he can either restore his reputation or fatten up his wallet.
Gotcha. Boy, Jack.
I was going to tell you that Chris Ash, he's got those Buckeye ties, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He was there for a couple of years.
He's getting a $9 million settlement, and in his time at Rutgers, he won 8 games. So that's pretty good.
You know what you call that? That's good work if you can find it.
Absolutely.
That's what my dad used to say, man. You get $2 an hour, that's good work if you can find it.
You can make more than $1 million per win. That's Lettermen Row kind of money.
You know what that's called, Jack. I'm gonna have you on again because you and I are two guys from the old school, or not old school, but the old days. We know how things were 40 years ago when a bowl game was considered a bonus for schools, and bowl money, you would put it into like the reconstruction fund for later, and now these teams are guaranteed so much money from the Big Ten Network and the TV things. They literally are treating it from a contract standpoint like monopoly money, and it's crazy how it's gone. And yeah, I mean, I like Chris Ash. He was always nice guy to me, and I thought he did a hell of a job when he was at Ohio State. He helped revolutionize, safer tackling throughout college football with bringing in that rugby style and stuff to Ohio State, and everybody started copying it. Clearly didn't get the job done at Rutgers, but it's just crazy. You agree how much money is just thrown away almost anymore in major college football?
Absolutely. You talk about the Rutgers situation, and you think about Saquon Barkley, he'd committed to Rutgers. Jonathan Taylor, he'd committed to Rutgers. And then suddenly Penn State swoops in. Wisconsin sees him in a track meet.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, Rutgers got nothing except playing against them.
Yeah, that Wisconsin discovering him at a track meet reminded me of that scene from Forrest Gump where Bear Bryant is at that football practice, and I don't care, he sure can run, about Forrest Gump, and next thing you know, Jonathan Taylor's a Heisman Trophy candidate. Well, hey, one other quick thing before you go. Do you think the team down south of y'all? It's a team from up north from here, but do you think the team down south from y'all What do you think's going to happen as this season goes along? I mean, we've all seen teams rebound from early losses throughout the years. Ohio State got beat pretty soundly at home by Virginia Tech in 2014. Meanwhile, at the end of the year, they're the national champion with their third-string quarterback. What do you think? Does Michigan get its act together as this season goes along?
Well, Michigan has players, but I think maybe its two best coaches last year are now in Columbus. And
ladies and gentlemen, he's talking about Greg Madison, defensive coordinator for the Buckeyes, the resurgent Ohio State defense, and Al Washington Jr., linebackers coach. Go ahead now, Jack.
Yeah. So I think Michigan's problem is leadership and the fact that it is consistently the most overrated, overhyped program in America. And it is mind-boggling to me that when we were in Chicago, Michigan was the choice to win the Big Ten championship.
Mm-hmm. I agreed. Remember, I was on your show up there.
You did.
I said, I just don't get it. I mean, if you just follow recruiting, if you follow X, Y, and Z, of course, Nebraska was everybody's darling pick to win the Big Ten West because it was going to be somebody different from Wisconsin, and wow. I called, it's funny because I called Saturday's Ohio State game at Nebraska a reality check game. This was before the game. Because you were going to see whether Ohio State should be considered now by everyone the proper favorite for the Big Ten for a third straight year, and whether Nebraska was really back. And the reality check was yes and no.
Well, I guess there's always a chance, and we've seen it. Michigan has stung Ohio State a few times back 95 and 96, and then 69. Even going back further than that. But I would not be surprised when it's all said and done if Michigan is a fourth place team in the East.
Yeah, I wouldn't be either. It could happen. Hey, well, last question. Speaking of stingers, the stingers that hurt the worst, 2013, Ohio State's playing for a Big Ten championship, 24-0 in the first 2 years under Urban Meyer and a team named Michigan State. Pop. 2015, Ohio State is right there, is going to return to the college football playoffs for sure. All they got to do is get by this kind of like this Michigan State team that's starting a quarterback nobody'd ever heard of unless they grew up in Lima. Boom. Storm rolls in. Pop. What do you think?
Right.
Is a pop possible on Saturday night in Ohio Stadium?
I don't know that this Ohio State team is going to relax, and I think back to some of the wins Michigan State's had, even going back, Michigan State beat Ohio State 3 times in 4 years back when Archie was there. And you think about the 98 game with Julian Peterson, and that Ohio State team was phenomenal, I thought. And next thing you know, Ronaldo Hill had the ball in the corner of the end zone. So
Burt just kept throwing the ball until it stuck. Yeah. I mean,
I don't think it's going to happen, but I guess I've seen stranger things happen.
Levi Jackson, right down the right sideline there in Michigan.
There you go.
Spartan Stadium. I mean, Ohio State has Michigan State on his brain, I'm sure, this week, and they're going against a really great defense. Hey, Jack, I really appreciate you coming on my show, man. And of course, reciprocal action.
Anytime.
I think in a trade-off now, it's kind of like when Ohio State schedules, let's say Tulsa. You get you get 3 games from me, whereas I got 1 game from you. You follow my drift?
I appreciate that, and we'll take you up on that.
All right, Jack. Appreciate it, man.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Jack Ebling, one of the most respected college football analysts out there. He's been around almost as long as radio has been around and does a great job in Lansing covering Michigan State football for, almost 5 decades now. We're going to be back in just a moment. I'm going to analyze a play for you from Saturday night, my favorite play of the game, and then I'm going to bring on Boston Ward, speaking of respected journalists, and we're going to quickly break down Ohio State, where it stands right now, almost to the midway point of the season. We'll be right back.
Hey, college football fans, it's Zach Bourne here. You need to check out BetDSI.com. BetDSI is a great way to use your sports knowledge to make some extra cash. That's right. BetDSI is the top-rated online sportsbook. They've been paying winners for over 20 years. The reason they've been around that long is because they have got the fastest payouts in the industry. Plus, the user interface and mobile site is the best in the business. Play, win, and get paid. It's that simple. It doesn't matter if it's college football, the NFL, NBA, NHL, UFC, esports, reality TV, virtually anything. You can bet it. You can bet on it at betdsi.com and get paid right now. There's no better way to add some excitement to games that you already are watching. Check out their live betting, where you can bet on games throughout the entire matchup, every play, and every minute until the end. BetDSI has a special deal for Lettermen Row fans. Use the promo code ROW100 to get a 100% bonus match. That's more than double. That's right, more than double your money to start winning today. Once again, go to betdsi.com and use promo code ROW100 and get this limited 100% bonus offer to make some extra cash on the sports you know and love. BetDSI promo code ROW100. Now back to the show.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to the miracle of television and audio and YouTube, I get to analyze a couple of plays now, and I really enjoy doing this segment of this show. The play I picked from Saturday night's game, Ohio State at Nebraska, was once again a great example of blocking at its finest by an offensive line that seems to be getting better by the play, much less the outing. And this is the big-time Justin Fields run midway through the second quarter, as you can see on the time here. And Ohio State already has a comfortable lead. It's just hammering away at Nebraska's defense. And what I love about this play is we go back, Spencer Holbrook, my producer on this show, he's also running the back and forth. You'll see Ohio State's got three offensive linemen to the right of center here. Two wide receivers to the left, an H-back, a tight end H-back on this side, and this tight end over here is Jake Hausman. Right here, Josh Allaby, I'll be talking about even more as this show goes on, gets to start at right tackle in place of a banged-up Brandon Bowen, and this is just another example of a dominating night for him. Right guard Wyatt Davis, and then center Josh Myers. But everybody gets a block on this play like a play I analyzed a couple of weeks ago. All right, now let's stop it right there. As you can tell, Ohio State has started here. Justin Fields, it looks like an option play. You know, he's selling the option. The funny thing is, he's not looking at the guy they've left unblocked, which is this linebacker. On almost any option, you're going to leave somebody unblocked, and that's the guy you read. He's looking right here at what's about to be a hallelujah moment for a fast running quarterback. As the play develops, the fake to Master Teague to third. Stop it right there, Spencer. Look right here. Wyatt Davis has kicked out, knocked this guy out of the way. Josh Allaby's gotten to the second level, gotten this guy out of the way. Josh Myers has fired off. He's at the second level now. He's about to take out this linebacker. And then their nose guard, left guard, Jonah Jackson is taking care of this man, their nose guard. Wow, he just turns them around. Right now, Justin Fields is thinking, oh my goodness. He's probably thinking something other than that, but I'm trying to keep this show clean. Now watch him just explode through this hole. Everybody that needs to be blocked has been blocked. We had another play earlier this year, as I talked about, where everybody who needed to be blocked has been blocked. The runner, in this case the quarterback, he's got to beat one guy to turn this into a touchdown. And as my buddy Boston Ward pointed out, maybe if Justin Fields had just kept the pedal to the metal instead of doing a little Braxton Miller jump there, he might have scored on this play. He definitely seemed to have the speed and the angle, but that little leap allowed their safety to get over in time to make the play, knock him out of bounds. But ladies and gentlemen, let's just keep this running here. Thanks to my buddy Kirk Herbstreit at ESPN, who drew this up from the zip cam, which is, by the way, my favorite view in football. Just watch the way this play develops. Watch Wyatt Davis. Watch Josh Allaby. They feign, they do the double team, and then Allaby comes out, seeks a man at the next level. Josh Myers, Jonah Jackson took care of the nose guard. Josh Myers comes out and takes care of the linebacker at second level. The fact that they sold an option to Master Teague to third, you can see what it did with the guy they clearly weren't going to block. You don't usually leave two guys unblocked, but I don't think Justin Fields had any intention of ever giving the ball to Master Teague on this play. Bingo, bango, bongo. You've got a great running play for a fast quarterback. Thanks again, Kirk Herbstreit, for drawing those lines. It's kind of like Vince Lombardi when he said you got a seam here, you got a seal here, and you run the alley. That's exactly what Justin Fields did. And, wow, there are just so many options, pardon the pun, for this offense moving forward, especially after you've thrown this play up there for a team like Michigan State to deal with this coming week and right on down the line. It seems like every week Ohio State is showing something that the opposing defense has to add to the repertoire of getting prepared to face the Buckeyes. We'll be back in just a moment. Boston Ward, I left out my respectful tone there. Boston Ward and I will talk about this play a little bit more and talk about the rise of Master Teague, Justin Fields, and the offensive line, and especially the play of Josh Allaby on Saturday night. And we'll touch on some other things when we return. Well, boom, by the magic of television.
Hello.
Boston Ward, ladies and gentlemen. How'd you like the way I analyzed that play again, Boston?
It's one of my new favorite weekly features at Lettermen Row.
Yeah.
And I wait for it because it's like a miniature version of Buckeye Q stuck inside the Tim May podcast, which is my favorite podcast. Other than Beanie and the Boom.
I just love, since I was this big, I've been drawing football plays. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
X's and O's and stuff, and I just love it, quote unquote, when a plan comes together.
Well, I mean, we got the laser pointer for you, the whole deal here to get into it. I mean, I can what I like about it is that I can tell you're having fun doing it. And that makes it more fun.
Well,
for
see, I
everybody
got into sports writing back in the mid '70s at the height of Watergate, and it wasn't because I just loved football. Yeah. I figured this is my closest thing I'm ever going to get to, because I was 6'2", 155 pounds in high school, and like I said, they could have filmed Friday Night Lights at my high school in Lufkin, Texas. I mean, you didn't make the football team at 6'2", 155, and you run the 40-yard dash in about 4 or 5 days. I mean, that wasn't going to cut it. But I've always loved just the scheme part of football. Mm-hmm. But then I always remember that the scheme part includes big guys running into each other, and that's what people discount, like Charlie Weiss.
Yeah, and when you're talking about that too, like getting into it and Watergate, and I've referenced this when we talked about Tennessee a few weeks ago. Like I got into it because I played quarterback up until I was not good enough to play anymore. Because of this limited physical.
By the way, my brothers always made me the quarterback of our neighborhood team because I didn't like to get hit.
But that stuff, like, I mean, I don't know if this is exactly what you're saying, but I didn't want to ever get into. I didn't get into this profession to write about the guys that were holding up the liquor stores at Tennessee. I wanted to be around coaches, get to know players who work really, really hard and all have great stories, and then the games. Like that's what we get into it for, and I think that's really been nice recently with Ohio State moving away from some of the off-the-field issues that a lot of other schools have had, knock on wood there. But the kids that they've recruited, it's not just lip service. They are really smart, really hardworking. They've largely stayed out of trouble, and so we get to talk about football more than any nonsense away from it.
You heard me in preseason. I said this is a quality roster, and I'm not talking about the football players. I mean, I've covered a lot of football. I've covered a lot of football rosters, and this is about as quality a person per capita roster as Ohio State's ever had, in my opinion. And that pays dividends down the road. It pays dividends. This is what people don't understand. When the reason they developed Sasso, and the reason they developed, being on these guys about their grades, et cetera, way back when, is because you can say, well, you're trying to help them get your degree, which you are.
Right.
But the bottom line is, it keeps that distraction away from the football team. When you're chasing a guy about getting he needs to get a C on his exam this week,
or just go to class,
or just go to class, but needs to get a C just to play this week, et cetera. That takes away from preparation. And coaches hate distractions.
Yeah.
And this team has done, especially under Urban Meyer. I'm not saying the other guys, Jim Trust, those guys didn't do it either, John Cooper, but they've definitely taken it up a notch in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's a huge relief. I mean, coaches are not going to sleep at any time. They're still going to worry about it constantly.
Right.
These guys should let them get maybe another hour or two, and then you go into a bye week, and as opposed to, you and I have both been in this situation. It's Friday night during the bye week. You think that you're going to maybe get some time off. and then you get that call.
I was getting ready to tee off in a scramble. What was that, 2015?
Yeah.
And I get a phone call, and it's like 8 o'clock in the morning at Middle Memorial Golf Course, and it's one of my guys telling me, you better check the police blotter. Your quarterback, J.T. Barrett, just got pulled over for DUI last night.
That was one of the most unbelievable ones
kidding?
that I would never, ever would have guessed that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So never plan when you're a sports writer. Never plan to do anything.
Don't ever take time off.
Yeah, but it's a lot easier now. Now that I'm sort of a part-time guy, thanks to my man Will Crawl and this gig here at Lettermen Row, I don't have to worry about that stuff as much, thanks to you. But real quickly, let's hit this real quickly. That was a definite huge digression.
As we usually do.
5 games into the season, Ohio State has yet to be formally challenged, unless you count going down 5-0 to Miami of Ohio, a game which they rebounded to rally and win 76-5.
What a comeback!
Just keep this short, okay? Biggest surprise of this football team to this moment. I'm talking about Ohio State, not Miami of Ohio.
The biggest surprise from a big picture perspective is just how good the defense has been under Greg Madison and Jeff Hafley. I expected you could have. I've said this to you before. If they had brought back last year's staff, these guys were so experienced. They had so many players back, and they're still so talented. There would have been some improvement, but they clearly needed a massive change in approach, better communication from those defensive coaches. And these guys, I think, have a lot of ideas how to use them. So I always said that Damon Arnett and Malik Harrison and Jordan Fuller, obviously, but some other guys, Jashawn Cornell, that those guys had potential to be stars. And now this defensive coaching staff is bringing it out of them. So I thought there'd be slow, steady growth, but the way that they have taken off, they are just exponentially better than I thought they would be at this point. And you have a legitimate case that that's the best defense in America.
Yeah, you heard me talking to Jack Ebling early in the show, and that's what I told him. I said, and the other thing is, there are two true studs on this defense. And there are other guys that are really good, but Chase Young and Jeffrey Okudah are the best at their position, I think, in the country. I don't know if you agree or not. That's just my take. And Okudah is just the last several games last year and the first 5 games this year has just exploded.
I think there's no question that Chase Young is the best defensive end in America. I think there's no question he's the best defensive player in the country. I think there's a strong case to be made as well that he's the best overall player in the country. And if he played quarterback for Ohio State the way Justin Fields is, because Justin, I think, is going to go to New York City, but if he played on the offensive side of the ball, the Heisman race would be over. I thought Nick Bosa could have done a dark horse run last year if he'd stayed healthy.
Absolutely.
But Chase Young is putting together this kind of special season. The numbers, if he stays healthy, and Larry Johnson will be knocking on wood for that every single night, and Ryan Day, the numbers he's going to put up are going to be astronomical for a defensive end. They're going to be hard to ignore. Now, people still do that, and Ndamukong Suh should have won the Heisman. Didn't happen. But you're right. Okudah, now that he's playing differently now that he's got the interceptions, and you talked about this before, that once that monkey came off his back, to use his own words, he's a different guy. The confidence you can see he's playing with is completely different. I think even from the first drive of the Miami game, once he got the pick after that, it was like, okay, I'm back and rolling. And I think Malik Harrison is playing special as well. I throw him in, and Jordan Fuller. I mean, I'd go down the list. But you're right. If you're talking about those two, they have cases to be the best players.
I think Malik Harrison still has a ways to go to just be that force that he should be.
Right.
I mean, but he was raring to go the other night, that late hit out of bounds. I mean, just shows you. If it had been in Canada, he'd been all right, right?
He'd been just fine.
Yeah. But the bottom line, in Jordan Fuller, I mean, I've always respected what he does at safety, et cetera. But, hey, let's have a little quick update here. We'll probably find out more as the week goes along.
Sure.
Josh Proctor, did that look like it looked like a left shoulder situation for him. Now that Isaiah Pryor's entered the transfer portal, that's kind of you got to keep an eye on these kind of guys now, the backups.
Yeah, I think the early indications that I heard was that Proctor would be okay moving forward.
Yeah.
It's a little bit I don't know the exact details for what happened there. They did take a look at him in the tent there, as you saw on the broadcast, Tim, and then they pulled him back out pretty quickly after that. Saw him on the field after the game. Didn't look to be in any tremendous discomfort. Sometimes we can read too much or too little into, but they didn't take him into the locker room. They didn't do anything in that situation. That's usually a good sign. So, that's one to watch. The other one, just to get there, that I think is going to be really interesting this week with Brandon Bowen, because he went through workouts. You and I have heard that.
I was going to get to Brandon Bowen.
Yeah, it's a back injury, that he had an MRI for that going into last week or sometime in the 2 weeks he was being evaluated for that.
Right.
He went through it in the pregame. He looked to be, he looked fine doing that stuff, was moving, held him out as a precautionary measure, or just that he didn't quite get that full clearance. But now the way Josh Allaby played, you hate to take somebody's job for injury, right?
Yeah. Well, as I pointed out, and when I was analyzing that play, Josh Allaby, he didn't just fill in. He had a great game.
He was the player
Nebraska.
of the game.
Yes.
And that Ohio State almost never does that.
Right.
To point a spotlight on one offensive lineman.
But he dominated. It was unbelievable at times. They got a good push from a lot of guys. But so what do you think happens there? You got Nicholas Petit-Frere sitting there.
Yeah, I think it. And I keep saying this, you got to feel good about, if you're Greg Studrawa, about the depth you have there. And now we know for sure what Ohio State would do if something pops up. Allaby's going in there right tackle ahead of Nicholas Petit-Frere.
Your third best tackle plays.
So we've got that information, and I think that also is informative for the rest of the depth. If something were to happen to Jonah Jackson or Wyatt Davis, I think that means that you would potentially kick Bowen back inside and then have Allaby still stay out there at right tackle.
Yeah.
So he's sort of the de facto number 6, but
swing guy.
But he did not play like a swing guy.
No.
He was mauling people. And normally when I watch it live the first time through in the stadium, I'm not great at picking up the offensive line play. It's hard to evaluate.
So you got to be like me now, where you're just kind of getting to watch the game.
You've got the replays,
yeah.
but I'm telling you, in Memorial Stadium, I am noticing he is destroying people and opening holes.
And by that I meant even when I'm with you guys in Ohio Stadium, I'm just watching the game now. I can zero in on Chase Young because I'm not worried about where the ball is going. But yeah, he was. He put on for whatever term, a backups clinic.
and look, this is twice in the last 6 games for Ohio State that Josh Allaby's had to do it. And he did it on the left side for Thayer Munford.
Yes.
And the fact that he's versatile enough to go do it on the right side for Brandon Bowen, on the road against Nebraska and in the Rose Bowl against a really good defense, it's not like he just went out there and helped them survive against Miami of Ohio.
Yeah.
He went out there and took it to Nebraska, and Ohio State, they dominated the line of scrimmage. There's no other way to put it. People were talking about that for the Indiana game, how impressive it was and how they moved it on every down. This is a much more talented Nebraska team than Indiana, and they had no shot in the trenches.
Yeah, I thought they were better than they were against Indiana, and it always helps, when a team's playing 2 technique in front of you to a certain extent, the guy's going to be right there,
Yeah.
So, and Ohio State took advantage of that. Hey, one other quick thing, and before we get out of here, I keep bringing him up every week, but Master Teague III, not advocating Master Teague III should be the starting running back, but when you've got 2 fastballs that you can throw at people now, like J.K. Dobbins and Master Teague III, which I think he has been as big a surprise. That was a preseason. That was a question mark is for this team was where's the depth at running back?
Right.
Holy smokes!
It's there.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing. Well, Master Teague was hurt during August, so they didn't know what they were going to do. But I would, and just as a quick aside, Marcus Crowley, the 4 carries, I believe he finished 45 yards.
Yeah.
That guy is already coming along. I know for a fact that Tony Alford believes big things are coming for him.
Yes.
So that's another potential fastball if they needed it. But what's interesting to me about the way they used Teague and Dobbins on Saturday night was that was the first time in a long time that I watched Dobbins run and I saw the guy from Indiana in 2017. And what I mean by that is the cliche of running downhill, he looked like he was shot out of a cannon.
Yes.
And he's not always finishing these runs in the end zone. He hasn't broke off a bunch of 60-yard runs in his career, but he is back to that point where it was blocked for 3 and 4, and he was getting 10 and dragging guys forward for 15.
Yes.
And that yards per carry is on the rise, and that helps Teague. Okay, Dobbins is wearing people out, and he is a handful. And then you have Justin Fields, and then you have this changeup where Teague runs so physically.
Yes.
I was the most impressive run when you brought up his name. The first thing I thought of was that throwback screen, and when Teague got it, he just put his head down and went. And, not a lot of guys always do that when you get those plays. They're, okay, how's this thing blocked? Can I make this a turn in anymore? He was like, no, I'm getting 26 yards. It's right in front of me, and I'm taking it. And I've been extremely impressed. Then he had the touchdown run, of course. But
yeah,
Master Teague, I told him this 2 weeks ago when you were at home breaking down the Indiana game, getting that perspective for us. I walked up to Teague after the game and was interviewing him. I said, hey, I can only speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for the rest of the media. I thought you'd be a short yardage back.
Yeah.
I was wrong. You've proven me wrong. And he kind of, laughed it off. But the guy has way more potential than I
challenge people
expected.
to go back and watch his highlights, in high school at Blackman High School in Murfreesboro, home of Middle Tennessee State. I'll never forget that day I asked him, did you ever consider Middle Tennessee State? And he laughed. He had bigger, but he wanted to leave home.
Alabama, Ohio State, and
he wanted to leave home for college.
Just throw that home team cap on the table to give him a bump.
Yeah, exactly. But he had some games where he would break it clear, and he looked like that breakaway back, And the other night, man, at Nebraska, he looked the same. A couple of those plays, that little swing, like you're talking about, swing pass he caught. Where the funny thing is, I thought Justin Fields kind of threw it a little bit crazily, but it actually set him up.
Yeah,
it launched Master Teague the third, and it was a nice throw. Real quick, before we go. Give me 20 seconds on why this is a big challenge on Saturday night in the Horseshoe for Ohio State. Michigan State coming to town, without a doubt the best defense Ohio State has faced this year.
Wow, 20 seconds. I tend to think the last couple of years that Michigan State is building up their defensive stats against lighter opposition. And the amount of points they gave up to Indiana on Saturday tells me it's not going to be a
10
challenge.
10 seconds left.
I think, look, They might see the jerseys and have nightmares about some other games from the past if they're aware of all that history. But in terms of personnel scheme, I don't see it. I don't think Ohio State is going to
Representative Austin Ward, your time is done.
Oh, come
Representative Austin Ward, it's like in a Senate hearing. No, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I mean, this – and the thing we've talked about on this show before, we're going to keep talking about, this Ohio State repertoire offensively, I mean –
you can't stop it.
No, just look at – I mean, how do you stop it without getting to the quarterback repeatedly? And, Mark D'Antonio's his theme song when he was a defensive coordinator was affect the quarterback. We're going to see if he can do that on Saturday night. And
here's the deal. I promise I'll keep this to 15 seconds. But
go.
If you're going to stop a team like Ohio State that has that much talent on offense, they have to hurt themselves. They have to turn the football over. And this team doesn't do that.
Right.
Justin Fields may, from time to time, hold the football too long. But if he's taking 2 sacks a game instead of throwing 1 pick or 2 picks, you take that every day. 0 interceptions through 5 games. That's what fuels the offense. If you don't turn it over to Michigan State, you don't lose.
Yeah. By the way, my favorite play for him on Saturday night wasn't a touchdown pass. It was the way he escaped on that one play and then threw the ball back over the middle.
The one to Farrell.
And who caught the ball? Luke Farrell, ladies and gentlemen. He's in the house. He's got a catch.
All 4 tight ends now have a catch, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's my show, the podcast, once again this week, heading up to Ohio State versus Michigan State on Saturday night in the Horseshoe. Ohio State now getting some votes even for number 1 in the country. Impressive showings, and it seems to be growing.
Absolutely.
We'll see as this season goes if they can keep this rise going. But until next week, I want to thank you for joining me. This is Tim May from the Tim May Podcast. See you later.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row.
We got Letterman Live, we've got the practice report, we got rapid reaction. Hey, and we got Buckeye IQ with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Lettermen Row.